You're listening to the Mile You're In podcast. Everything running related, from 100 meters to 100 miles. And now, here's your host, Phil Patterson Jr.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mile You're In podcast. I have another special guest on the show today. And quickly, before we get into that, as always, I want to thank or give a shout out to my two Patreon supporters, Becky from Miami and Francine from Pembroke Pines. And I don't know if I have permission to give this third person's name out, but I do want to still say thank you in case you hear this for your huge donation you made the other day as a one-time supporter to the show and the website. I appreciate that. But today I have a special guest. I stumbled across her profile as I was just looking for some new people to bring on the show. And I was just kind of blown away by the attitude and personality that stood out from the posts, the captions that went along with them. It was somebody that kind of lit a little bit of a fire in me as I head into the last non-ultra race that I have coming up this weekend, and then I head into my ultra stuff. It was almost just a reignite. Is that a word? I don't even know. A reignition, something like that. But it got the fire started again, and the passion ready for this ultra season coming up for me. So I want you guys to now get to know Vivian Camille. Welcome to the show.
Hey.
So go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, what you do, so they can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, my name is Vivian Camille. Some people call me Viv. Some people call me Cammy. Really, I answer to all of it. All my childhood people have called me Cammy. Now I go more by Vivian. So it's kind of confusing. So I was like, you know what? I got married and I was like, I'm just keeping both my first name. I'm changing it to both my first names, Vivian Camille. Make it easy. And yeah, I guess to start, I am present. I am light. I am love. And I am a child of God. That may sound quite dumb, but for me, it's important to keep the truth at the forefront of my mind. And so who I am is not determined by my hobbies, career choice, or relationship status, or even the productivity in the day. So I like to just continue to remind myself that I am not a runner, or I am not whatever, where I live. I'm not a flight attendant. Like, I am love and those sort of things. So a little hokey, but that's the truth. And I got to keep that on the forefront of my mind just to remind myself that. But I right now am absolutely loving trail and ultra running these days. I pretty much started running when I was like 5. My mom's done over 45 marathons. So that was just kind of something I saw her do. And I was like, oh, I like to run. I ran cross country and track all through middle school and high school. And then my brother ended up running a marathon. And I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Trained for a marathon. In the process of that, I was like, if I can run a marathon, I can probably run a 50K. Mm-hmm. And then I signed up for this 50K. It was a 40-mile long race because apparently the cows ate the signs or something. Anyways, so I was like, okay, if I can run 40 miles, if I actually train, then I might be able to run 60. Sure, we'll sign up for 100K. And, the rest is history. So that's kind of how I got into trail and ultra running. I, of course, love the community like everyone else. But I just kind of realized the further I go, the faster I get and the stronger I am. So I look forward to pursuing more races that are farther and more technical. But I also live in Arizona. I moved here about 3 years ago, and I love it out here. I moved out here to be close to the trails, and I now live about 5 minutes from them. So that is fabulous. I work as a flight attendant and really enjoy it most days. It does make training pretty tricky, but I do enjoy meeting a lot of new people and getting to run all around the country. Couple other things. I hate mosquitoes. I enjoy a lot of other sports like motocross, hunting, fishing, surfing, skiing, scuba diving, biking, pretty much anything outside I love. My number one priority this year is to have fun. Lil Jon is one of my favorite trash artists, and I probably eat about 3 to 6 pounds of blueberries every week. So it's pretty much everything you need to know about me.
That's it. Podcast is over. We're done.
That's right.
Man, if you don't hear the personality already, I feel like I was like asleep. Like the way you jumped into this, I'm like, oh man, I better sit up in my chair and wake up. Like, man, what time is it? But no, that's why I wanted to bring you on, because I like, even before I saw any video, I was like, man, like you could just read it in the post. Like some people, the way they write their captions or, you know, a blog or anything like that, you can feel like the little passion that they have, that they put into those words. And I just wanted to bring you on for that reason, to bring something different to the show. And like you mentioned, I think we all kind of start there. We start at a small distance race, and then, you know, we just have that positive attitude of, okay, well, if I did that, I can do this. And it's kind of the joke in the ultra community that you really should stay away from ultra sign up and a lot of these race sign up races for a while.
Yeah.
It's like you do a race, you're like, oh, I'm never doing this again. And then like within the week, you're already back on the site looking for the next race.
Exactly. Yeah. It's frightening how accurate that is across the board.
So since you brought it up, how do you find the time and the ability to train with your career, and how I would assume it's inconsistent, you know, with, it's not like, hey, I work these days and these hours. It's always changing depending on the flights. How does that work?
It is, at this point, it is literally moment to moment. I think that will be a reoccurring theme in this podcast and any of the questions you ask me, but literally I have to live moment to moment. I'm not even talking day to day. It's like when I go to work, I learn well from examples. So I'll give you one from literally 2 days ago. I showed up to work and we had a 5-hour delay, a mechanical. And so I was supposed to get home at a certain time and I didn't because we were 5 hours delayed. So my run went out the window because my mom and I have a rule. If it starts with a 2, you're not allowed to get up and run. You should sleep. But if it starts with a 3, that's game. So 3 a.m. we're allowed to get up and run before work, which is a little bit crazy. But if it starts with a 2, then you need to sleep. And it started with a 2 the other day. And so I didn't get to run in the morning. So that means that whole day, like I didn't get to run. And so, you know, it is super inconsistent. I'm working now on trying to find more ways to make it more consistent. I'm interested in maybe coaching and selling more of my trips so I don't have to go into work and just be at the mercy of the industry, which right now is a little crazy. The trip before that, I think we had 2 cancellations. I got separated from my crew and I came in, I was supposed to be in at 11 a.m. and I wasn't home until like 5 or 6 p.m. So it's just kind of like the wild, wild west out there. I never know what's going to happen. And so I guess to answer this question, the way I train now is just kind of by asking myself, like, what can I do today? And so when I have days off, it's like, okay, well, I probably need to get in as many miles as I can. How can I rearrange my week to, you know, maybe I can do some 2-a-days this week and get some more mileage in, because when I go to work, looks like I might not have a long overnight. And so I can't run there, or there's just no telling. But pretty much it's just moment to moment. I'll go out, like yesterday I went out for a run and I was struggling hard. And I'm like, I haven't struggled this hard since I started from ground zero and could only run a mile. I'm listening to my body. It obviously is not super happy to run, so we're going to walk. But I got out there and kept moving forward. And that's just, yeah. each week I kind of set aside a basic structure for the week. And so there's usually like one day of speed training, one day of like super easy running, or a couple of days of super easy running, and then some form of long run in there. And then I try to get that in the week. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think I'm a lot more okay with things not working out. And part of that is because of this past race that I ran, the Black Canyon 60K. I went in with extremely inconsistent training, very little training for my liking, and I still happened and managed to do a pretty decent job at the race. And so that kind of gave me the confidence and the faith that, you know, I'm doing the best I can with what I've got, and that's all I can do. I can't be upset if I miss a long run, or if I miss that speed workout, or if my body was like yesterday and like I can't run. I have to walk a lot of today, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just more moment to moment, which isn't great if you're trying to explain your training or, you know, help other people train. But that's my reality, and I'm just kind of pressing into that and doing my very best to not beat myself up when things don't go to plan, because the vast majority of the time they don't go to plan, like as planned, and beating myself up for it doesn't help, because it's really out of my control. So yeah.
Well, and that's why I wanted to ask, because I know a lot of people, and I've done it as well. You know, we make excuses about time and our schedule being thrown out, but we have to be flexible. If you're really trying to do something, you're going to find some time, whether it's little bits and pieces and chunks that you put together to make a total at the end of the day or the week, or you just cram it all into 1 or 2 days or something like that. And with a schedule like yours, it's kind of a eye opener for people that, you know, may use that as an excuse and then listen to you and go, okay, well, I don't have anything really to say because my schedule's a lot more consistent than that. And I can imagine that definitely has to affect, you know, just the performance, because your training plays a huge role in, you know, each race. Jokingly, I just picture you pulling like what I would do. Maybe I've done it at work before. You just start walking up and down the aisles, because it's time on your feet that plays a big role in these ultras. So I just, as you were talking about this, I was imagining you like, all right, I'm not going to get it running, so let me just walk up and down the aisle a bunch of times. These people are going to look at me weird, but I'm getting, you know, some steps in. I'm not probably going to get miles, but
right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I've gotten better about finding like minutes in my day where I can intentionally quote train or be doing something that's helping me. So I actually get a lot of time on my feet, and for me during work, I usually don't try and get more time on my feet. Even if I'm low on miles, I have a lot of time that, you know, we do a service, and then we do a trash service, and we might do a second service depending on the flight time. But in the in-between times, I'm doing like my mobility work on the jump seat.
Gotcha.
Or we have these like beer can thing, or like beer containers that hold all the beer and ice, and they're real heavy. And so I'll do like an arm workout with those, and I'll do like squats in the back galley, and I'll do stretching and things like that. Because I wear heels. And so, I don't know if that's the right approach. But I wear heels for work. And so usually I'm trying to get off my feet. Not because my feet hurt or anything, but time on my feet is, abounds in my job. And so I don't usually need more of it. Is kind of how David is my husband. He and I kind of bounce ideas off each other and try to formulate the best way to train as possible with my given circumstances. But yeah, well, as far as people having excuses, I think we all can come up with excuses. And one thing that's helped me a lot is, instead of saying like I don't have time, that's just not my priority. And that really stings when you want your priority to be running, and then you say, oh, that's not my priority right now. It's like,
Mm.
oh, well then what is my priority? To go watch Netflix? Is that my priority today? Because I don't like that one, you know. That's been just a small little shift that has made a lot of difference in my day to day. Because yeah, oftentimes I might have time when I get off work, but I've worked a 14-hour day on my feet all day. And the question is, I'm too tired, or I don't have time. And so the question then is like, well, what's your priority? Is it sleep? Maybe that's the best thing. Or is it to go get this run in? And guess what? When you run an ultra run or any sort of race, you're going to be tired. So, this seems like perfect training to me.
I like that. Yeah. Wow. Like, I didn't even put that into play until you just said it, because I started thinking of like, well, because my wife and I were just talking about Camille Haran breaking her record, and she made the joke. She's like, oh, well, she don't have to worry about stuff like you guys, like falling asleep during the race. And I was like, no. So what you just said makes sense, because a lot of times we do have those long days and you're like, oh, I'm tired. And it's like, well, when you're out there racing like me, I'm out there almost the entire 32-hour cutoff time. So this is the perfect time to train. So going into my future runs, when I'm not feeling it, I'm going to keep that in mind. Like, it's going to suck like this or even worse come race day. So that was your chance. And that's, I'm glad you mentioned earlier all right, my body's not feeling this, let me walk, because I had that issue. I went on a run this weekend. It was just, it was supposed to be 28 miles. Somehow, I don't know, these GPS things don't work out the way we map them out, but it's been cooler than normal. I would say our South Florida winter lasted a little bit longer, and I got used to, the high 50s, low 60s, where normally it's, mid 70s to 80s. And this was the first weekend where it really got into that temperature zone. And around mile 21, 22, I was just like, oh man, I haven't felt this heat in a while, and my body's somehow gotten unused to it. And the last 2.5 miles, I said, look, it's not safe for me to run at this point. Like, I could feel the dizziness coming. So I just walked it. And in the past, that would have been something I beat myself up about, but I knew from experience now that, it's the time on your feet, the training, the pushing through that heat of the day that's going to come in a ultra. All those little things are what help you come race day. So I'm glad you brought that up. And then you mentioned your recent race, which is the one I wanted to talk about, the Black Canyon Ultra 60K. You had some, worries and questions about your body and what was going to happen. How did that all play out? First, I guess we'll talk about it. The issue with your knees, if you could kind of break that down.
Elaborate. Yeah. So I ran the Bandera 100K, I think in 2018. It was my second time running it, and I finished that run. But then a couple weeks after, I wasn't able, I started getting this awful knee pain, and I wasn't able to train or anything. I thought I'd be able to race more that year, and wasn't really able to train for probably 6 or 7 months. And then I finally signed up for the Rattler 66K, which was 40 some odd miles. And halfway through that race, I had to walk because the knee pain was back. And I was just kind of going back and forth between some days it would be okay and other days it wouldn't. And then I trained for the Santan 50K after the Rattler, and 50K, it was fine, easy, smooth sailing, great, no knee pain at all. And so I continued to train for the Black Canyon 100K in 2019, I believe, or 2020, because it was the following. Yeah, that's right. And thought going into it, I was super stoked about the 100K, and my knees felt good. I didn't even think about them. And then I showed up to that race, and by mile 29, my knees gave out and I could only walk. And so I walked the last 30 miles of that race and was devastated. And so that took me out for a year. So now we're up to date It's been almost 2 years that I've had this really weird knee pain that nobody's been able to figure out. We couldn't, like, chiropractors. I went to physical therapists. We've got x-rays, we got MRIs, we got blood work. And it's just kind of been elusive and on and off. But when it comes, the pain builds so much. For some reason, like, the running motion I can no longer do. And so I'm forced to power walk. Like, I cannot physically lift my leg in that running motion. I'm not sure what it is. And so finally, like literally 2 weeks ago, we finally got some answers. The doctor thinks it's rheumatoid arthritis and the autoimmune disease. And so that being said, there's not much you can do other than manage the pain. So yeah, the 60K, I ran that. I had to drop from the 100K, which I was originally signed up for, because I thought, I'll have a year to figure out my knee pain and come back and do the Black Canyon 100K as my redemption race and hopefully not have to walk the back half. Well, training has been, like I've said, very inconsistent this past year, and leading into the 60K, yes, I did have a lot of doubts, both about my training and then my knees. I just had no idea what was going to happen with them. And I started running, and yeah, mile 1 right off the bat, they hurt. And I was like, well, great. Last year I got to walk the back half. This year, I guess I'll be walking the front half. Killer. Love that. But that's the funny thing about ultra running and why I love the sport so much is, if you're a 1 mile track runner, you have 4 to 5 minutes that you're going to battle your mental game, and you're going to have to use your mental game. In an ultra, it's like 5+ hours that you are dealing with the mental game, and you're trying to convince yourself to quit while also trying to convince yourself to keep going. And so the start of that race, I was playing that mental game where my brain really wanted to go to, well, you should just walk now. Your knee's already hurt. You're going to walk the rest of the way. Why would you even try? And it was a battle of the mind and like, well, actually, I'm still able to run. Yes, they hurt, but last year I wasn't able to run. I was forced to walk. They just hurt. So I can keep running through the pain. That's fine. We'll run until they lock up and stop. And so I kept running and they never locked up. And so I was able to finish the race. And
Nice.
yeah, it was awesome. I had a lot of fun. I threw up for the first time, which was killer. Really enjoyed that. And once it was over. And yeah, I have no complaints on the race. I think it was a lot of fun. And that's really what I wanted, because the previous Black Canyon I had run, I was really miserable and really angry the whole race, or that whole half of the race, just angry with my body. And for this 60K, I had no expectations. And I was like, if I have to walk, I have to walk. And I'm going to have a good time doing it. I'm going to have fun rather than cuss my way through the entirety of the race. And it was a ton of fun. And I apparently didn't have to walk. So that's great. But yeah, overall, that was a super fun race. And that's really all I guess I have to say. I started and luckily I finished, and I went out fast because I knew what I was dealing with, like some questionable knees. And I was like, well, might as well go out hot and then just try to maintain whatever lead I have or gap that I have in the women's field. And if I end up having to walk because of my knees, well, hopefully it'll be enough. That gap will be enough to get me to the finish in the same place or close. So luckily I didn't have to walk, but I think my race strategy has forever changed with the info that I have now, that there's no real cure for the knees. According to the doctor, it's just manage the pain. So I think from now on, I'll probably just go out fast and suffer the consequences. And I'm sure some races my knees will cooperate and others they won't. And that will be how I have to operate. Some people deal with stomach issues, and that's their thing that they have to factor in with their race strategy. And I'm going to be probably dealing with some knee issues every time. I'm just going to have to factor that into my strategy.
Well, and it's like you said, when in doubt, go balls out. And that's what you did. But one thing I did want to touch on is your persistence and your ability to push through and say, okay, I'm not going to just quit. I'm going to at least give it a shot. You didn't just finish. You finished in a certain position in the race. Did you want to talk about that? Because I think that's pretty incredible to work your way back and finish on the podium.
Yeah. Well, that was a surprise. My mantra was definitely when in doubt, go balls out. So I started picking people off really early. And I think I probably ran 7:30s for the first 20-ish miles, which
her
is
knees
downhill.
hurt and she's running that pace, guys. Just remember that.
Yeah. Well, again, I have perspective because the previous year, I was walking and I was like, well, yeah, well, at least we're not walking.
Right.
At least we're not walking. Let's utilize this time well. And one of the guys, I was just chit chatting. It was like I wanted to push, but I also knew my limits because of the lack of training I had put in. I knew that 720 would be a big ask for my body. And so I hung back with the guys and I was chatting, making conversation with them. And one of them was like, you're in fourth. And I was like, oh, really? He was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, cool. And I could see third place ahead of me because Black Canyon course, you have a pretty good view of everybody as you kind of hit the switchbacks and it's kind of windy. So you get to see your competition. And I was like, well, we'll be patient, but I'm pretty sure my transition through the aid station will be much faster than her. And so that was my strategy in that moment. I was like, well, if I'm fourth, I want to stand on that podium because standing on the podium's fun. Mm-hmm. And I'm all about having fun. So let's try and get third. Let's see what we can do. And going through Bumblebee, which is the halfway mark, I switched out and probably was in and out of the aid station in less than like 30 seconds to a minute. Oof. And my thing was never see her again. Make her so sad that she lost you, but put some spit, like you got to cover ground now so that she thinks that you are out of sight, out of reach. Put some space between you. Like if you're gonna push, now is the time to push. We can slack off later, but she needs to think that I'm way ahead. And I never saw her again. And I did towards the end. That's when my lack of training showed. Like I said, I threw up because I hadn't trained. I'd done, I think, a total of 3 long runs, 2 of which were back to back in the 2 weeks before the race, which definitely don't recommend, but that's what I had. That's what I did. And so my stomach was not trained for that race and I suffered the consequences. And 10 miles out of the finish line, my legs were done. But I was like, well, we're just going to keep moving forward. Forward is a pace, some say. So, yeah.
That reminds me of 100K I did, I think it was in 2019. And we were on the last leg of an out and back. And there were probably, 8 or 9 miles left. And at that point, I was starting to hurt. And I was like, all right, well, I don't ever do it to get podium because I don't run that fast. But some of the smaller races down here, you have the opportunity. Big name runners don't come down here or do those smaller races. And as I was hitting the turnaround, I seen third place coming back, and I'm like, man, he's not that far. So now the competitor in me kicks in, and I'm sprinting more on my run intervals and power walking more on my walk intervals because now I have something a little bit more motivating. I end up catching him, passing him, and as I'm passing him, he's talking to a 50K person that was still out on the course, and I hear him. I'm I don't know, maybe a couple hundred feet past him already, and I hear him. Yeah, I'm pretty much done. I'm just going to be limping it in at this point.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm happy. I'm like, oh, this is good. Like I've got third place locked down. But then I'm like, oh my God, these next 8 or 9 miles. Cause now like my legs from pushing that hard for those couple miles to catch him, I was like, oh, if I knew he was feeling like that, I would have just chilled and caught him with like 2 miles to go. So that's what's fun too about ultras is, like you said, the communication and the chatter that goes on that you don't really see or hear in shorter distance races, because everyone is a little bit more serious and focused on these fast times where you can't really speak in that breathing rhythm. But a little bit more about the knee, and you just mentioned it about other people's struggles with stomach, or for me it's sleep, being able to stay awake for these long periods of time, knowing that there's that fear of the unknown when you enter a race and you're taking chances. How do you prepare for these possibilities, or do you just take them? I know now that I think about it, you did say moment by moment, so that might be your answer, but how do you prepare knowing whether it's knee or any other issue might pop up during these races?
Yeah, well, yes, I have mentioned moment by moment, and I think that's definitely the mindset when I get to the start line. But prior to that, David and I sit down and we go over the course, we go over the gear that I'm going to have, and I even practice my transitions through these aid stations in my yard, because I know that I'm going to need because most of the races I enter, like, I want to do my very best, and whether that'll get me on the podium or get me a better time or whatever, I just want to know that I'm giving it my best. And if it's an A race, if it's a B race, then that's a little bit different mindset going into that. Those are a little bit more like training runs. But if it's an A race, like, I want to show up to the line knowing that I have prepared as much as I can. So as far as the knee goes, currently I'm enrolled in a new like knee program with a coach. And so I'm going to be working on strengthening those muscles around the knee to support the knee, and just everything in the leg in general, working on my mobility, my ankle mobility specifically, because, everything works up from there and has effects. So I think really with that and refining my diet and making sure I'm getting a lot of anti-inflammatory foods and reducing the inflammatory foods, I think with those two things alone, and then being really aware of what makes my knee more, like what makes it hurt more via less, then just like focusing on that, I think I'll be able to do that. That to me will mentally help me to know, like, I have done everything I can to be prepared on this start line. And what follows is going to be up to the good Lord and whatever my body's capable of that day. And so, yeah, mental preparation for me is just being confident in, like, knowing that I have done everything I can leading up to the race to prepare myself. And then, yeah, when I get to the start line, I know that that's part of ultra running is troubleshooting and stepping into the unknown. And I think now I handle it a lot better because I have a lot less expectations with my races. And the Black Canyon 100K the other year really taught me a lot of what I don't want to do. And I think when you have good, clear pictures of what you don't want, then you can clarify what you do want. And yeah, that race, everything about it wasn't great. And so part of that was I lacked the mental capacity to just go with the punches. And yeah, and so now I just assess moment by moment. Like with the 60K, mile 1, I was like, crap, my knees hurt. This is going to be a long day. But I was like, okay, but we're in this first mile. Let's get through this first mile. Okay, we're on to mile 2. Knees still haven't locked up. Great. Let's keep moving forward. And I just kind of took it bite size by bite size, I guess. Small little intervals.
Well, and that leads into the next point. It's just like when things do get rough, we use whatever we can. Some people it's music, some people it's communication with, volunteers or other racers. Some people, if they have their phone, they start calling friends and family. for me and some of the people that I have raced with a lot, we all just show up to the same races lately. We're a big family now. It's the sense of humor and jokes and just trying to have fun and find any positive in that. How does that factor into your game plan? Because I know you said, I'm going to make the best of this. I'm going to have fun. I've said that, and last year, no matter how many times I tried it, it worked maybe a little bit or not at all, where this year I'm working on it a lot better. Obviously it's everyone's different mentally, and pain tolerance plays a factor in it. But how does that factor into your grind when you know, all right, either this is really going to just suck as I put in that hard effort, or I'm going to be walking, it's going to be a lot slower and maybe a little bit more boring. How does that play into your game?
Yeah. Well, so I'll go back to the 100K, Black Canyon 100K. It's like mile 29. I'm already having to walk, and I am frustrated as all can be. And yeah, there was no fun to be found. And I was just mad. I was so mad. And so I just leaned into that. I was like, yeah, I'm leaning into it, and I'm just going to let this anger flow through me. And so I did. And so that included me yelling and screaming, and probably being really like, if people were around, they would have been terrified and like, who the heck is this person? Luckily, nobody was really around. But yeah, I just kind of channeled David Goggins' energy and was cursing a lot at the hill that I had to hike up. I was really angry with my body, but I just leaned into it because I guess, that's all I could do in that moment. Was it the right thing? I don't know. But I knew that at that time, like, there was no way to pull me out of that anger. There was no positivity. There was no fun, because I was so angry with the performance and the training I had put in and the time that it was spent. And I was just pissed. Whereas the other, the 60K, the difference there was I leaned into everything that was happening too. I leaned into my knees hurting, but the expectation wasn't as high there. And so, I've just kind of learned to not fight against anything. My mom and I have a little saying, any sort of saying, it's double negatives. So for example, say it's like pouring rain and windy and cold. What we'll say is, we know it's rainy, but at least it's cold. And so we're just stupid like that. Or, it's super hot, but at least we're running 60 miles where it makes no sense. But we try to make fun of the situation and like lean into it. Like, yeah, this completely sucks. We recognize this completely sucks. And guess what? We're still here. We're still going to keep moving forward.
Well, I'm glad you were honest about that, because I think that's part of the problem. And I think that was part of my problem last year as I struggled through my last 3 races, is you have to be yourself. And people know me as someone who's typically upbeat, joking around, usually the one that is the goofball that's, not serious when things are serious. And during those moments, I was trying to be that person, when now that I hear you say what you did, it makes me think that's what I probably should have done is, I always say to people, ride the high, grind the low. But instead of grinding the lows, I was trying to pretend they didn't exist and block them out instead of just grinding through them, knowing that they're not going to last the entire time. And that's what I've kind of applied to my training runs this year so far, where, even when this weekend, it got brutal and it was hot and I was starting to get back into that negative mindset. Like you, I saw things that were frustrating me, and it was kind of like an F you, Hill, or, like it was in a jokingly way, like, okay, you're going to be another nuisance to this run. Okay, fine. I'm going to take it and I'm just going to make fun of you, make fun of the situation. And your attitude changes that way instead of you trying to use other techniques. So I was glad that you said that and were honest about it.
Yeah, I just think that it takes so much more energy to fight against those things. And it's so much easier to just let them flow. Like, you know, I could have been like, I shouldn't be angry right now. I should think more positively. And I just I didn't even have the energy to do that. It was like, let's just let this anger flow out of me because that's all that I can do. And it was so freeing, you know, like I'm not going to should my way through a race. Like whatever's happening is what's happening. And I think it takes way more energy to fight against whatever emotions are coming up or whatever. It's like, let's just let it flow out of me because this is ultra running and this is part of this sport. And there are going to be super low lows and just embrace them. I know like when I was not wanting to eat any goo. And so I was like, yeah, I love goo. This is amazing. It's so sarcastically because it was disgusting. But, you know, that was the coping mechanism for that. And then I knew I had to throw up really bad towards the end of the 60K. And I was just thinking of Lil Jon's song, Throw It Up. And then I threw up and all I was thinking was, yeah. You know how Lil Jon does? I was like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, we're doing it. Let's just embrace this moment. Yep. Okay. And we move through it. But I'm pretty much done trying to resist my reality, whatever that looks like. So if it's really dark, then I'm like, oh, we're going dark. Oh, my demons want to hang out? Well, we're going to hang out. Come, sit at the table. You want bread? You want a salad? Let's eat. Let's talk. Yeah, we're going to hang out with these demons. I'm not going to run from you. So I think that's when the true, like, when you start really opening cool doors and you start opening those new strengths within your body and within your mind, you're like, oh wow, I had no idea I could get through that or push through that. And you do, because you kind of embrace the moment.
I like that, because if you think about it, those demons are working at you to quit and stop right there in the moment. And it's like, all right, well, actually, how about you come join me for the next 30 miles and see how miserable this is going to get? Because we're not quitting now. So I'm going to make you suffer with me. So I like that. That's, you know, it's funny too, because I had recently had Brittany Charbonneau on the show, and she was talking about kind of the opposite, about how she would make things fun with costumes and things like that when she's running or thinking about little things. And we made this joke about how I was, you know, I've initially said, okay, well, I would get a Eeyore costume or mask or whatever, just to, when I'm feeling down, just dig into that and live that character. And she said, no, you should get Tigger. And people heard that episode and we were like, oh, now I got to see you in the Tigger costume when you start getting frustrated out there in the nighttime before the sun comes out. Like, so it's either way can really work. And I think that's key for people to understand. No matter what distance you're running, even if it's a training run, the same thing isn't always going to work. Some days, you know, saying, all right, this is going to suck. Let's ride that out. Or, okay, let's try to convince myself to think positive and find something good to look forward to. In those moments, as you said, take it moment to moment and make things as fun as possible. And that's been your mantra, your word for the year. Kind of explain that, because you mentioned you have a word for every year. So this year it's fun.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, well, it goes back to this contrast between the Black Canyon 100K and the Black Canyon 60K. Ultra running is definitely a comparison to life, and a lot of things manifest in a race that might not in real life, because you're not pushed to those limits day to day. But within that 100K, I realized like there's so much anger in me. Why? And it was because I put pressure and expectations, and I wasn't having fun. I wasn't having fun running. I had all these expectations and things around it. And I was like, well, why am I not having fun? Like, even if I was getting paid to do this, if I'm not having fun, then I shouldn't be doing it. Like, even my job as a flight attendant, I think I have a lot of fun doing. This life's too short to not enjoy it and to not have fun. And so this year, my focus is just to have fun and to stop worrying about all this extra crap that doesn't matter. This for my birthday, my 25th birthday, I'm gonna be racing donkeys. We're gonna go do the burro racing. Okay. You have to, you start the race with your burro, and you're not allowed to ride them. You have to run with them to the finish. And it's a 6-mile race, but it could easily turn into a 25-mile race depending on how your burro acts. And like, that's fun. If I was seriously training, I might say, no, I could get hurt. I could whatever. But seriously training, no, I want to seriously be having fun. And I don't know. I just think this year I have a different mindset with the year. And usually I review my year at the end of the year and set my intentions for the coming year. And this year I said, screw that. Once again, I'm just going to live moment by moment and go through life, because all I have is this present moment. And I want to be really intentional with the time I have and really conscious in this time. And I have no idea what's going to happen in an hour. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I just don't. I've been given this time right now. I'm on the podcast and I am totally into that and fully immersed in that, because this is the time I have right now. And so I'm really just living moment to moment, as I've said a zillion times. And I think that's where the fun comes in, because you're fully immersed in each minute of the day. You're not thinking too much about what's to come, and there's no anxiety really. Like for that race, I was excited for the 60K, but I wasn't anxious or worried. I was just like, whatever's going to happen out there is going to happen, come hell or high water. And I'm just going to move through it and work through it. I think one more point on just like racing and stuff, as far as like positivity goes, that I just, again, I'm going to bring Lil Jon into this because he's just my hero. But something like when my knees hurt, it's not like, oh my God, my knees hurt. I try to channel his energy, Lil Jon's energy, and be like, yeah, my knees hurt. Let's do it. Or his other little thing is, what? Yeah, just like keep it light, keep it fun. Oh, I'm throwing up. Great. Awesome. Yeah. Like, Courtney DeWalter, her thing is, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. Even when things are very much not fine. Right. And that's how she gets through. And I just do it musically with Lil Jon. And I'm like, yeah, everything's great. Yeah. What? We're running. What? Yeah. Like, that's how any issue, any challenge, that's how I'm going to face it, like moving forward, is because there's just no other way, in my opinion. I can't be upset about it. I just have to embrace it and keep moving forward. But that's kind of how this year has also been, is like, oh crap, I got delayed 5 hours. Yeah. We're going to keep working through that. Like,
this is going to be stuck in my head for like the next week.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, let's reassess. What can I do? I have 5 hours. Okay. So I'll be waiting at the airport. That means I can sleep for a little bit in the lounge, or I can go do some sort of squat. I can go do whatever. Maybe I can stretch some, or maybe I can read this book. And not everything has to be productive, but, I'm just a lot more okay with what's thrown at me now. I have a better mindset to handle those things. Cause in the past, I have a 5-hour delay. I can't do my run, then I'm really upset the rest of the day. My day's ruined, and I'm mad because I can't get my run in. And that means then I start to spiral, and it's like, well, if I can't get this run in, then that means tomorrow I won't be able to do the speed work because I was supposed to do the easy run. Now I need to do the easy run, and crap, now that means my whole training plan this week is a disaster. I shouldn't even run. It's like, well, no, that's not really how we should be thinking here. It's more like, okay, well, I have no control of that. I'm going to do what I can, and that'll be enough.
And I think that's a huge factor when it comes to ultra running. Is like you said, it's not a shorter race where you're only out there for a couple hours. You're out there for a long time, and things are going to change constantly, and you have to be flexible and be able to adapt on the go. And that's how you remain successful towards your goals. You can't just wait for it to be perfect and everything to go your way, because 99.9% of the time they're not. And it, something I mentioned to you was your mentality and your outlook on life, how that's encouraging to others. I know certain people may even come to you intentionally, or in my case, we just stumble across your profile, your posts, and we walk away inspired to be better. Like, even what I knew already, I've taken even more out of this. And I know when I listen to it on my next run and can focus even more, I'm going to pick something else out of there that I might have missed just doing this in the moment. Who are some of the people, or somebody, I know you mentioned a few people that have motivated you, but people that you may look to realign mentally and refresh, your sources when you're down and maybe need that person or that someone, even someone who may not be alive. I know some people look back and listen to discussions and conversations, interviews of people in the past that motivate them. What is your source?
Yeah.
Or is it just Lil Jon, like, all the time?
It's just Lil Jon all the time. He's like, yeah, everything for me. No, I'd say one of the biggest people who do inspire me is my husband and my mom, probably those two. My husband, just because he's always, whenever I am feeling down or feeling like, oh, I feel confused, like I don't know what I should do because this whole week has been exploded by work. What should I do for training? I don't know. He always is like the sounding board and always the rock who's like, okay, well, you can't do this, but you can do this. And I know you feel this way, but the truth is you are doing just fine. Everything's good. And then my mom, she's just a superstar person. She's the one who, she's made it work. She's qualified for Boston and run Boston a handful of times, and did that through raising my brother and I and working full time. And so she's kind of paved the way for me to see that, like, oh, it's possible to make this running thing work and to train for races and still work. And so she's taught me a lot of the tools and resources that I have now and that I use. She's been the one to teach me those. She calls them, I think it's the ninja training. Yeah. The running ninja training is what she's imparted on me over the years. And then I think I sometimes fall back on just like motivational videos on YouTube. Sometimes I just need somebody to yell at me in my ear and tell me to get the F out the door and whatever. I don't find a whole lot of motivation via the social medias. I don't like social media that much, which is very funny because I have it and I post on it. But I just think that's I don't know. I draw most of my inspiration from real life people who I'm like in contact with every day. And then for me, God as well. And just aligning with that power and that source of energy, which is within me. And like, we all hold the answers. We all know the truth. That's within us, I think. And if we're able to listen to that. And so, you were talking about your long run the other day when you just were like, no, I really need to walk. That's that's the answer. That's the truth. Like, it's not you slacking off to just be weak and slack off and walk. It's because you actually need to. And so I've really drawn on that a lot more lately, of like, What is my body telling me? What is the Holy Spirit, source energy, the universe, whatever? What's that telling me right now? And a lot, like, that's the answer. And I know that to my core. It's not like some feeling of whatever. It's like, no, yeah, I might feel really tired, but I know deep down that I need to get this run in, because that is ultimately what my purpose is today. That's what I'm going to do today. And so the inspiration comes from a lot of different things, I'd say, but mostly the people in my life that I see day to day, not posts and things like that. I think they can sometimes inspire me, but I've lately just been a little more turned off by Instagram, because I've maybe been jealous of people running, and I've felt more negative when I leave Instagram than positive. And so I've just stepped away a little bit more from it for the time being. But, you know, that's an ebb and flow. It changes. Sometimes I'm totally inspired by certain accounts. But as like Lucy Bartholomew, I used to follow her. Well, I still do, but I used to like keep up. And now I just don't, because I haven't been on the app, because again, it doesn't serve me right now. So it's all kind of, again, moment by moment, just kind of changing. And I just kind of listen to that. I'm like, oh, this isn't fun. I feel sad when I leave Instagram because I can't run the distances these people can, or because my knees are broken or whatever. Okay, guess what? This isn't fun. Okay, well then we're going to stop doing it. Boom. Simple as that. Is that consistent with my word of the year? Yeah. Okay, great. What's more fun? Interacting with real human beings. Okay, let's do that. So, yeah.
That is perfect. And that's why, again, I've said it a couple times already, but I wanted to bring you on, because you're like, what each person uses is different. And every person that listens to this episode or any episode of mine, it's not always going to speak to them. And there might just be one person that says, man, like I'm sitting here, like I'm when I get done, there's so many things I'm taking out of this and using going forward. And that's what I love. Like it's not, you know, for me to just sit here and talk about things that I've done. It's relating sports, and specifically in this case running, to life, and even more so ultra running, because the longer you're out there, the more you realize, man, this is connecting to that situation I had at work last week, or man, you know, this connects to how I feel when I have to study for this exam, for this certificate or degree that I want to get at school. Do I really want to do this? You know, like you said, that what is my purpose? What is my passion? So I love that. And the last thing I really wanted to touch on before we wrap this all up is something that I saw you displaying. Can you tell us what is Poppy Strong? Because I know I see stuff like that, and I instantly think there's definitely a story behind it, something that means something to them. And I wanted you to share, as long as you were comfortable with it.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. Any chance I get, I love to talk about Poppy. He is my grandfather. He recently made his transition into heaven in December this past year, and I think he was 76 or something, almost something, I don't know, pretty old. So, you know, it wasn't like he was super young or anything. He'd lived a great life, and he was very close to my family and me as well. You know, some grandparents you see once a year, but my grandfather, I saw him all the time. Up until his 70s, he was riding the MS 150, which is a 150-mile bike race across Texas. And so Poppy has always been Poppy Strong. He's always motivated my whole family, and just been he's led by example, by doing the hard thing and not complaining about it, but having fun doing it. And yeah, it's just, you know, a 7-year-old man biking across Texas, and halfway through we sleep on the floor outside, and, you know, shower, maybe we get to shower in these like RV things. So, like, you know, it's not your typical thing that you're doing in retirement. And he was out there every year doing it with me and my mom and my brother. So we had 3 generations strong out on the course, which is I think we were one of the only groups out there doing that. And so running Poppy Strong for the 60K. This year, I just kind of dedicated that race to him in his memory. And my mom had run the Houston Marathon, Poppy Strong as well. And in his memory, Poppy was her dad, who she was also very close with. And so, yeah, that to me is just embodying Poppy's spirit and the strength that he had through the entirety of his life. And I think that's a huge inspiration to me and a big source of strength. Just knowing that he lived a very full life and he showed me how to do that. And I want to continue to do that in my life. And the race was just a time where I felt him out there and I felt his strength and I felt his, I have one video clip of him at the MS 150. And again, he's this old man and his spirit is just so young. He got off his bike and at the little quote aid stations, the little rest stops, there's of course food and snacks and water and porta potties and music, lots of music. And he got off his bike, just throws his bike down and just starts dancing like there's no tomorrow. And it is hilarious. And that is Poppy. Like, no matter what, always having a good time. Just so fun. And so he's of course very missed and always will be, but I know that he is still dancing his heart out. And yeah, it's just he supported me. He was at the Rattler 66K. I was gonna go run that by myself. He was like, "Oh, we'll bring the RV." So they brought their huge RV, set up, made friends with the race director. You know, they were there for me. Both grandparents, my grandmother's still alive, and I was also a source of inspiration. But you know, he was really the backbone and always supported me and was like, "Oh yeah, do the thing. Oh yeah, we'll be right by your side." I made a post about him dropping me off on Long's Peak at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning to go let his granddaughter hike for 12 hours in the mountains by herself in the dark on one of the most dangerous 14ers in Colorado. And he dropped me off and picked me up and was the first to congratulate me. And so he never let fear stand in his way. And I love that. And that's something that I will continue to try to embody in my life to kind of live his legacy and let it continue on.
Well, I obviously definitely sorry for your loss, and you can hear the passion that he gives you and passes on. And that's what I think we all hope to do in our life, is to inspire others and give them life no matter where we are. And that was powerful, and that's something that I think again, another piece of motivation or inspiration that we can use towards our dreams, our goals, our passions. When things may be down, there's always something we can draw from, whether it's right there in front of us or it's a memory. It's things like that get us through some of the tough times.
Absolutely.
I know you're not huge on social media, or but for anyone like me who may stumble across this podcast or this episode and go, man, I want to at least follow her whenever she does post something, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so on Instagram it's Viv's Vibe, and YouTube is Viv's Vibe as well. I post when I can and when I have something to say. When I don't have something to say, I don't post because I don't need to.
And I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot of people, not to interrupt, but people are like, man, you don't put episodes out as much as other shows, because I don't want to. I want it to be quality over quantity. So yeah, listen to what she just said. Like, I'm gonna post these episodes come out when I want them to. Go ahead. Yeah,
and like my YouTube channel, I would love for it to be super consistent, and the reality is I'm trying to run as much as possible. I also have a full-time job, and I also enjoy sometimes not having to do anything. And so I post there when I can, and I love making the videos. They're not probably the best quality you've ever seen, but they're fun. And again, I'm having fun. So I hope that when you watch them, you enjoy them, get a chuckle, and have fun. But that is also Viv's vibe. And those are the two places I do have social media and that you can connect, and feel free to DM me or whatever. But yeah, that's about it.
I'll add those as always to the show notes for the listeners so that they can easily just click on them. Before we head out, is there any last message or anything you got coming up that you want to promote, or a big race you want to talk about? Like anything you want, the mic is yours to end the show.
Oh, awesome. I don't have much to promote other than, ask yourself, am I having fun? And if you're not, then either change your attitude or do something about it. Because the more people having fun, the more fun this life is. Because Lord knows it hasn't been the most fun this past 2 years. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have much to promote or say other than thank you so much for having me. And it's been a joy to have the mic. Lord knows I can talk for ages. So I hope that, I hope you have a fabulous rest of the coming year. And I wish you luck on all of your races as well. And just that you have a good time.
Well, I appreciate that. And for everyone listening, until the next episode, whenever I decide that to be, go find a Lil Jon song, listen to it, and have fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Mile You're In podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check out previous episodes and more at heelstriker954.com.